Welcome back on Southeastern 16, talking SEC football. Chase Robinson, Chris Lee here with you. LSU schedule. We've previewed their schedule. We've previewed kind of their season. We're gonna look at kind of an interesting twist as we dive deeper into LSU and answer the question: can LSU go unbeaten in the regular season? It may be different than what a lot of people think. But before we dive into that, let's talk about BetOnline. They are the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get out on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here. All right, Chris, we've talked LSU, and I think this is an interesting season because it kind of all hinges on the defense. Is this defense better than last year? It needs to be way better than last year, but have they made the improvements they need to make for it to be a good defense? And so I know you kind of have the Chris Lee model, if you will, that you have put together for all 16 team schedules, and it's an interesting question to pose. Can LSU go unbeaten in the regular season?
Chase, sometimes you look at these schedules and you just kind of gloss over things and like, okay, that game seems like it's a toss up and and then you start really diving in and sometimes something just really pops. And you're about to show everybody what popped because I just sent you a text with this graphic. I said, Chase, you're not going to believe this, but LSU's got a really good shot to go unbeaten on a game by game basis. Now, let me tell people what we're looking at here, okay? First of all, don't yell at us. I mean, you can yell at us if it makes you feel better, I guess. But this is something I put together. It's a points above average model, and I've taken three sources I trust. I've used Kelly Ford, I've used SC Plus, I've used ESPN's FPI, and I've averaged them to get a what are the points above average or below average for every single team in the FBS. LSU is 19.1 points above average, so you see that on the left. I did that with the opponent also. And then for home field, I either left it at a 0, which the first game was Southern Cal. Is going to be in Vegas. I'll call that a 0, even though if it's closer to Los Angeles, who cares, right? We're going to call that a 0 for all intents and purposes. And my guess is some LSU fans will travel to that game. So you go up and down the schedule, and everything else I've given 2.5 points. You could argue that Death Valley is worth more than that. You may be right, but we're just doing this as a mathematical exercise. So you either get 0, 2.5, or minus 2.5 added or subtracted to that. And then we take the ratings, we subtract them, and then we adjust for the home field, and you get the number out to the right, which is the spread. Now, we have seen some teams that, like, I think Missouri and maybe Tennessee were two teams we looked at and said, wow, these guys are just going to clobber half their schedule. They're 6-0 almost without having played a game. That's not necessarily the case for LSU, but I think LSU gets a lot of games that are borderline games. It gets some of those at home, whereas some of those same games played on the road might give you a different result. But let's start with the blowouts. Nicholls State, I just put in 20 as a placeholder. Who cares? Vanderbilt, that's a game they're going to win going away at the end of the year in Baton Rouge. So those are the two blowouts. And then you've got South Carolina on the road. So that narrows that a bit. You've got UCLA under Deshaun Foster, which, boy, that was a rough opening press conference if you didn't see that one at media days. Arkansas, all games they should win by double digits. So you start right off here. LSU has got 5 games that are projected to be double-digit spreads going into the game based on the model I put together.
Yeah, which is crazy. And is it surprising? I mean, not really. I mean, there's some really close ones on here, but yeah, I think and the home field advantage, I think, is a huge factor. Like you said,
Yeah.
some games would look different if it wasn't for that home field advantage. And LSU definitely has that one. Just being able to play at home helps, but the environment that is in Baton Rouge is not rivaled by many, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I this is just really incredible to look at and see. One, yeah, how many double digit games there are, but two, how many close games there are, and how
Yeah.
many would look different if they weren't in Baton Rouge. And they've got some really good games in Baton Rouge. Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, all three of those coming to Death Valley. Man, that bodes well, I think, for LSU.
Yeah, and in South Alabama, the 6 games. So sorry, 6 games in which they'll be double-digit favorites. Of course, South Alabama lost coach Kane Womack to Alabama, where he is now its defensive coordinator. But let's get into the rest of the ones in order of just kind of chronology here, because LSU is supposed to be a 7-point favorite or so in each of its first 5 games. He gets the bye week. Then it's got Ole Miss at home, and this is one of those. If you put it on the road, Chase, Ole Miss is going to be the favorite. So just that
Yeah.
flip there would have done it. But this is one you get in Tiger Stadium. And boy, that's one you really want in Tiger Stadium this year.
Oh, it certainly is. I mean, you see the how much being at home helps that one, like you said. But yeah, I think this is set up to be a really fun game, and especially coming off the bye week. But two really good teams here that have had some really good matchups in the past few years, and I think that will continue this year. But yeah, you look at that great 3-game stretch of Ole Miss at Arkansas and then at A&M. I think that's a really tough, important stretch because you see the spreads there that Chris provided for us. 2.8 against Ole Miss. It's 11-6 against Arkansas, but then 0.2 against A&M. So
Yeah.
two of those in that 3-game stretch are toss-ups. That's an important part of the schedule there for LSU.
Well, and if you want to play tricks with math, if I just make that a 3-point advantage, then all of a sudden A&M is, a half-point favorite. But that's how, and I think that's what's going to make them one of the more interesting teams. Is I really prefer talking about teams that got a lot of games. We're like, okay, this could go either way. And if you want to round down, LSU's got 4 games where it's going to be a field goal one way or the other. Ole Miss, A&M, Oklahoma, and Alabama. So, I mean, Oklahoma is probably closer to 3.5 according to this. And again, that's in Baton Rouge. That's another one where, the home field tilts your way in that one, where that's on the road, Oklahoma's favorite. But I just think this is a really interesting schedule because I didn't see it spitting out LSU might be favored to win 11 games. And again, if you were to, like, in a basketball sense, Ken Palm this out, you expect your record's probably closer to 9-3, but it's interesting that they are maybe going to be favored in all but one of those games. Here's another interesting one at Florida. And that's a place where you'd probably rather have that one late in the season than early in the season because Florida's got the most brutal schedule in the history of college football, perhaps. And you've got a hot seat situation with Billy Napier potentially coming in. That's one of those, if the losses are piled up, you wonder about buy-in and quitting and all those things at that point. But I just think that the last half of the schedule after that first bye, oh, by the way, the one game, Chase, they're an underdog in, is that Alabama game that's in Baton Rouge. And that was a weird series for the longest time because the road team seemed to win that one forever. I think it's changed a little bit, but you get a bye week before Alabama, which, like, if I'm placing my bye weeks, I think I absolutely take one there. I just think from that first bye week on till they play Ole Miss, I don't know, the schedules in the country get a whole lot more interesting than what LSU's got in those last 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, Alabama's got a bye week the week before that matchup with LSU as well. And what's interesting about that game too, Alabama was favored when they went to Baton Rouge in 22, and LSU won that one. Overtime, went for 2, won it. So that was the last trip for Alabama down to Baton Rouge was an LSU win. And again, the Tide was favored in that game. So, when we pose this question and we see the only game that LSU is not favored in is that Alabama game, well, that doesn't mean that they're just out of it. I mean, that's definitely a winnable game for LSU. So I'm really impressed with this and seeing it all laid out, and the fact that we could be talking about, and I thought LSU could be a borderline playoff team. And again, it still hangs on their defense and what they do. But I think there's a lot of hope and a lot of expectation if you are an LSU fan that you could be playing well into the month of December.
And look, if you go 11-1, you're going to be in the playoff. Obviously,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you go 10-2, you might, because like some of these games, LSU's a good team. You've got half these games that got spreads that might be 6.5 or less. It is it's like this schedule dichotomy that's really interesting because all the games are either, you know, if you look at this, almost decided on paper ahead of time, or they're going to be closer to toss-ups. And the Southern Cal game is the biggest spread in LSU's favor of all these. And that one's an opening game situation. We know how that went for LSU last year. So I think
Yeah.
that adds an extra degree of intrigue, not to mention geography being a little more on Southern Cal's side here.
Yeah, that's very true. It is. This is interesting to see if it plays out this way, but certainly cool how the numbers have fallen for the LSU Tigers. We'll have you covered on LSU football this season and every SEC team here on Southeastern 16. And of course, you can subscribe to our channel, like this video, drop a comment, let us know what you think about the LSU Tigers, and we'll do this for more teams across the SEC. We've got team previews out for a lot of the SEC teams, all the team schedule previews out as well. So check that out over on the Southeastern 16 channel. For Chris Lee, I'm Chase Robinson, as we keep you covered all things SEC football here on Southeastern 16.